American Primeval has just been released on Netflix, and it's the most recent show to be set in the 19th century in the United States of America during a time of hostility. This show was based on some true events following the US military, Mormon militia, Native Americans, and pioneers as they all looked to hold onto and gain land that they felt was rightfully theirs. With a story that also focused on Sara Holloway looking to get to Crook Springs and needing to evade people that were after her because she had a bounty on her head, as well as the Mormons going up against the Shoshone. Let's dive into this show, break down the important details, discuss the ending, but also look at what was true and what was false. So let's get into it. Here is American Primeval Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Sara Holloway and Isaac Reed. With the ending of Sara's story, we saw that with the help of Isaac, after escaping the massacre that took place by the Mormons as they were posing as Shoshone, she managed to fend off all of the people that were after her because she was wanted for the killing of a man back in Boston. She was appearing under the name of Sarah Rowell, but in actual fact she was Sara Holloway. We found out towards the end of the show that she killed this man because he would abuse her and choke her to the point of unconsciousness every morning when she woke up. But on the day that this person decided to do it to her son, Devin, she killed him and they went on the run. She wanted to make it to Crook Springs because she knew that there would always be a price on her head and her son wouldn't be able to live a life with her being a wanted woman. So she wanted to take him to be with his father despite the fact that he didn't want to be there. The uphill battle that it was going to be when it came to her making it to Crook Springs was something that was painted out in the first part of the very first episode. And we saw that exact struggle being depicted, whether that be the slaughtering that saw 70 people being killed on the Old Spanish Trail, the deceit that was met by civilians along the trail, the abuse that she faced, and even the harsh weather conditions which saw them all being pushed to their limit. It was a journey that made an individual tap inside of them and show just how much fight they had to have in order to survive, because if you didn't have that fight, then the journey would claim you as a victim along the way. When Isaac managed to kill Virgil and the other men that were alongside them after they got hold of Sara, Lucas was the only surviving member. When he looked at his brother's lifeless body, it felt like a death that would either spark him to be like another carnation of Isaac, a man wandering the land, mourning somebody that he once cared for, or it would go in the opposite way and remove that very heart and goodness that he had in his eyes and cause him to be a ruthless killer just like his brother. And we saw the second one be the pathway that he went down. It was only through Isaac parting ways with Sara and him finding the doll that the French girl once had on the ground where he realized that there was somebody that was still following them. This was because he originally caught a glimpse of the doll on a horse when he left the site after killing Virgil. Isaac ended up being shot in the confrontation, and Sara was alongside him as he drew his last breath, something that meant a lot to him. Isaac was a man that was angry with the world, considering he lost everything that mattered to him. So with him finding an element of peace and happiness in helping Sara, he died as a man with a mindset that he never thought he'd find again. With Sara, Devin, and Two Moons overlooking Crook Springs, the destination that she wanted to reach, she ultimately made the decision to instead go to California, the very place that Devin wanted to originally go to. It's an ending to her arc that is empowering, but at the same time, she only made it this far because of Isaac, and now he's dead. So they're just going to be embarking on a journey that continues to be as treacherous as what this one was. The Mormons. The Mormons had one of the most interesting story arcs in the show. Led by Brother Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he was a man that was hungry for land and he was going to do whatever he could to get it. He wanted to ensure that the Mormon religion survived, and he pretty much wanted them to operate under a different rule to what the rest of the United States did, something which led them to be at war with the United States military and also the Shoshone, because they both posed a threat to the religion and believed that they were going to wipe it out. The Mormon militia were behind the attack that took place on the Old Spanish Trail, and they spent the entirety of the season trying to cover up what happened. This was because there were a few survivors, Jacob Pratt, Abish Pratt, and Sara and Devin. 4 people would be able to act as witnesses in confirming that it wasn't the Shoshone that carried out the attack, but instead it was the Mormons themselves. Within real life, in the 19th century, there was an attack that took place called the Mountain Meadows Massacre, where a Mormon militia murdered 120 immigrants from Arkansas and Missouri. The motive is something that's not truly known, and the Mormon Church has denied responsibility, but it is rumored that Brother Brigham Young was the person who orchestrated the attack. Kind of similar to how we saw Brother Young being depicted in the show, aware of everything that went on and prepared to turn to violence if it came to it. Brigham Young wanted Fort Bridger, and he sought to buy it off of Jim Bridger. This was something that actually happened in real life as well, even down to the detail of Bridger being arrested by Young for selling alcohol and firearms to the Native Americans. Within the show, the Mormons got Fort Bridger just as they wanted, and they burned it to the ground so it would no longer act as a stop along the Oregon Trail where people from all walks of the land would stop and pose a threat to what they believed was the Zion and the religion from spreading. Jane Wolsey and many of the other Mormons launched an attack on the US military with the intention of retrieving Abish, but she was with the Shoshone by that point, which meant that Edmund, a character that I grew fond of in the show, one who hoped that the spirit of love would save them all, ended up being killed by Wolsey himself after being betrayed by a sergeant that was close to him. This meant that they then attacked the Shoshone, and every single character that we met that was a part of that arm of the militia ended up dying in battle, along with the Shoshone, showing that to the Mormons it was viewed as a success, but at what cost did it come at? We even saw Jacob killing Abish whilst she was fighting for the Shoshone. She was always a character that didn't know her pathway and found herself being with Jacob without truly wanting to be. It was only when she found her family in the Shoshone where there was a sense of belonging. Jacob also couldn't live with the fact that he'd killed her, and he ended up ending things for himself. It was a powerful scene and showed that there were no true winners amongst the blanket of death that was now present. The Shoshone. The Shoshone, which we saw being led by Redfeather, were present in their battle against the US Army and the Mormon militia. They wanted to hold on to their land and had bore witness to it changing over the years due to hunger, war, and the disease that the people had brought over when they settled. There was a scene in episode 2 where Abish had her locket taken off of her, and she said the line, "It doesn't belong to you." That was a moment that felt symbolic of the land being taken by the settlers and it being taken away from the Native Americans. The Shoshone acted with violence because war was all that they knew when it came to the people that they were fighting against. There was always hostility that was present, and Redfeather didn't want to give up what he felt belonged to his people, the land. That's why there was such a stigma and hatred towards the Native Americans that would go and work alongside the US military. It was as if they were turning their back on their own people. During the ending, we saw even the most peaceful of Shoshone ended up being killed, and Redfeather also died fighting for what he believed in, whilst hugging his son, the very person that he said would rather die fighting for what he believed in than living and begging for his food. The core theme of death. I'd say that the overall theme of this show was death. Death was present wherever you looked, and characters that felt like they had some importance would be killed off in an instance. When you look at all that survived out of everybody that we met, Brother Cook, Brother Young, Sara, Devin, and Two Moons, along with Jim Bridger, they were the only ones that survived. That was it, and we met a ton of characters on the treacherous journeys. It was a deadly time when hostility amongst the different viewpoints, political beliefs, and religious beliefs were all clashing, and this show depicted it well. My review of the show. I thought this was a really interesting show to follow. I love shows that are set in this time period, and Taylor Sheridan did it best with 1883. This show doesn't top the journey that the Duttons did on the Oregon Trail, but it comes really close. It's such an interesting and important time period in American history, and you don't often see it depicted on screen that much anymore, at least not to a high level. So this show definitely gets some points from me in being original and transporting us back to that time period. Was I the only one that felt like Isaac didn't really need to kiss Sara during the ending? This wasn't a story that needed a romance embedded within it in the slightest. As soon as Sara said, "I didn't want my husband to see the way I look at you," I rolled my eyes. Isaac was a broken man that was at war with God and the world because of what happened to his family when they were brutally killed. He felt like a character that wasn't looking for love, but found something beautiful in looking out for Sara, Devin, and Two Moons. It wasn't about romance, it was about company and doing the right thing. So when they shared a kiss, I actually thought it ruined an element of the show, because it would have been way more powerful for him to have walked away from people that he grew to care about protecting, rather than about somebody that he was just into. I did like that he came back at the end and died saving them though, that felt appropriate. I was fearful that they'd all ride off and have a happy ending together, so I'm glad that didn't happen. In terms of it being based on a true story, there was some truth behind what we were watching, and that made it all the more interesting for sure. When it came to the characters, I don't think there was a single character that I disliked. From Sara and Isaac to Redfeather and Dabish, even to Brother Young and Virgil, each character was performed so well and they were extremely convincing performances. My favourite has to be Jim Bridger though. He was such a likeable character, and whenever his men would stick up for him when Brother Young would arrive, it would just have me laughing. He had such confidence and knew the price that he was looking for. The massacre that occurred in the first episode was choreographed and shot so well. It was made to look like it was a single take shot, and it might well have been, I don't really know. But it was immersive, tense, you felt the danger, and it was full of bloodshed. Being right up close when Jacob was being scalped and it showing it all was just absolutely brutal. So, is American Primeval worth a watch? I most definitely think so. The ending was a bit cringe for my liking, and I think it did let it down a little bit, but that's only for Sara's arc. The rest of the endings are quite literally perfect for the story that we were watching unfold. It's only 6 episodes as well, so you breeze through it. I'd argue that this could have been 10 if it went at a slightly slower pace, and I'd have still loved it. I'd say they could probably even make a season 2 to be fair, with the same characters heading to California, or they could follow different characters as they go through the Oregon Trail and look to settle at different locations along it. That's something I'd definitely be open for. So, there you have it, American Primeval ending explained.